All right. I'm Rebecca Hay, and I've built a successful interior design business by trial and error, podcasts, online courses, and so many freaking books. Over the last decade, I've grown from an insecure student to having false starts to careers, and now I'm finally in the place where I want to be. Throughout my journey, it's been pretty obvious that I'm passionate about business and helping other entrepreneurs do the same. Each week, I'll share tangible takeaways from my own experience and the experiences of other badass women to help you build your confidence and change your business. Welcome to the podcast, Valerie. I'm so excited to have you here. We've been trying to get you on the podcast for a little while. Welcome to Resilient by Design.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be here. I think I found out about you actually from the podcast in the first place. So I feel like it's a full circle moment for me right now.
That's amazing. I love that.
It was good to be here. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thanks for coming. And I'm excited to dive into all things social media today. It's amazing to watch you from the sidelines and see what you're doing. And I think our listeners are going to love this conversation. But before we dive into all those things, why don't you just let everybody know a little bit about who you are, how we found each other besides the podcast, and what you're all about.
So my name is Valerie. I'm the owner and lead designer of Viola House. We are a small boutique residential interior design firm in Toronto. We work with clients worldwide now. We met, again, I found about you on the podcast, but then I was one of your POP students. I took your POP course, which I absolutely loved, and it was amazing. I still brag about it, and I recommend it to everyone. So that's my absolutely honest recommendation. And we rebranded last year. My company rebranded last year. We had a whole new chapter in our business, and since then, we started focusing really on social media and really implementing it as a part of our business instead of like being just somewhere on the sidelines. It's actual revenue stream for us now. And we saw an exponential growth in the last few months. And yeah, it's been life-changing. I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm so excited because, so here's from my perspective. Obviously, I knew you inside Pop.
Yes.
And because for those of you who don't know, Power Process, there's a live component, meaning that we show up on Zoom and I get to see people's faces and answer questions. And so I got to see your face. And of course, I would see your comments in the Facebook group. And that obviously I start following all my poppers on Instagram. And, and you had a different company name. Your name was Valerie Lush Interiors, I believe, correct?
Valerie Lush Interiors, yes.
Sorry, I can't pronounce it. Yes.
That was one of the reasons for the rebrand, because a lot of people mispronounced it, and it was like, okay, that doesn't make sense. Like maybe we can switch to something else.
Totally. It's so interesting. I've seen a few companies in the last little while rebrand and rename their company.
Yes.
Michaela Burns did the same thing. She used to be Mint Decor. She's now Michaela Burns Interiors. She's going to be on the podcast,
which is so much more elevated already than Mint Decor, right?
Yeah, amazing. So let's just talk about it. Like, what precipitated the name change, apart from the fact that it was hard to pronounce? And so what is your background? Like, what is the pronunciation comes from what?
What Russian. It's Russian.
It's Russian. Okay. Because I'm like, it's Lush. Like, obviously it's Lush. So you changed the name.
Yeah.
So what precipitated that? What made you decide to change your company name and rebrand? And I want to talk about the rebranding part of it, because you really did. It was like a 180 from what you were posting. If anyone scrolls back far enough, Valerie's Instagram.
Please don't.
Hey,
half of it is actually deleted now.
Oh, I wish you hadn't done that. It's always so inspiring for people to see where we start, right? So you can scroll back and you can see. And anyway, and it stood out to me, and I saw that you changed your name and I thought, oh, that's interesting. And then I started to see the content, and it was a completely, I would want to say different aesthetic, in a sense of that there was a very consistent aesthetic. And we'll talk about the Instagram piece in a minute. But before we get there, why and what precipitated the change in the name and the brand?
So the main reason beside the name being difficult to pronounce, a lot of people mispronouncing it. So I had to explain it every time. The other aspect was I felt like the type of clientele that I was attracting was not really aligning with the jobs and the projects that I wanted to do. So I felt that I was the girl next door who's your neighborhood designer who's going to help everyone out with your little projects, with your DIYs and stuff like that. So I wanted a little bit more, again, elevated feel and a little bit more serious business. And I didn't want my name to be necessarily uh, connected to it. I wanted a brand name and I wanted to create that brand awareness in a sense. So that's where it came from. And we're very much more strict right now with the content because before it was all over the place. We had some consistency on the website, but on social media, it was all over. The colors were all over, the fonts were all over. There was nothing that was like, this is recognizable. Right now, I feel like if you see randomly our post on the For You page, for example, you might think, oh yeah, I know who that is. So that was part of that as well.
So how long had you been in business under the previous name?
So we started during the pandemic, so I'd say 2-3 years at that point.
And what type of clients would you say you were attracting? You said the girl next door. So give us a bit more, give us a bit more tangible.
So low budget, just small projects like a powder room or like just clients who are not ready to commit to a full service design and they just want some advice and they want to do everything on their own. They want to shop around, get the best deal, that type of customer. I think we still have some of those and I'm not against working with them. But I'm just saying like in the majority of people, that used to be just not aligning with what I was looking for to do.
Mm-hmm. And how much would you say power of process played into maybe that realization?
It definitely did because then I did a course in the spring and like half a year later we rebranded. So that was kind of a timeline. By the time I finished the course, we started the rebrand process. The defining the customer, defining the client was very crucial for us. And that was part of the POP. And I've never done that before to the degree that I was doing it with you guys. So that was very helpful for sure, 100%.
Yeah, that's interesting to hear. I've had so many designers say that. And it's funny how when we start our businesses, we sort of breeze over that aspect because we're just so excited to do our work and do our craft and design. And we're just happy to probably cater to anyone. Let's be honest. When I started, I was just happy that somebody wanted to pay me to design.
Yeah.
And
you just need a project. You just need to pay your bills, right?
So and so I love that exercise had such an impact on you. That makes me really happy to see because really the outcome of that has been phenomenal. So, okay. So let's now talk about the Instagram. So you grew, I don't know what your account was at before you rebranded. Do you remember how many followers?
About 2,000 followers, maybe 2,500. And it stayed like that for the longest time ever. It stayed like that for years.
So it stayed like that for years. And then you changed your company name in 2023. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So just last year.
Yeah. So November, it was October, November. So end of last quarter.
Okay. And so that's at a time, I'm just going to let everybody know, that's at a time in the world where everybody was complaining about Instagram, right?
Exactly.
Included, right? Everybody said Instagram is not what it used to be. You can't grow on Instagram. The algorithm is totally effed up. Like there's no hope. Find another platform, move on.
Yeah.
So you ignored all of that, which I love. And where are you at right now? How many followers as of today?
I think 33,000.
Like, wow, that's in under a year. And you you actually grew from what, 2,000 to 20,000 in like a month or something, didn't you?
In a month and a half.
Okay. How did you do that? Everybody's like, I want to do that. Teach me right now.
So we do have a course.
We'll share that information with everybody. We'll have it in the show notes. Absolutely. Yes. But I mean, how did you figure it out? Like, how did you know what to do? It sounds like you went from a zero to hero overnight.
So it seems like that always with probably every single content creator that you see out there, and maybe with every successful person in general, that they had an overnight success. That's not true. That's simply not true. I've been posting since 2018 constantly, and the themes were different. It was fashion at first, then I got into interior design. It was interior design based. Then I became a mom. It was a little bit of a mom content, and it's all over the place, right? But in those years, I've been trying so many different tactics. And I feel like last year, I just narrowed it down to what actually works. And when I say what works at this time on Instagram that we have today, because it's such a fluid content platform. It's changing every single day. Every single day there are new updates. The algorithm is changing. There are new platforms, right? So it really depends on when you're doing it and when it clicks. If you're able to maximize on that and create the same type of content, that's gonna help you grow. So for this year, what we found out that was helping us, consistency in posting, number one. I know that nobody wants to hear that because that requires a lot of preparation and a lot of commitment. But that's true. You need to be consistent with what you're posting, because before I used to have those sprouts, like I would be so excited. I would be like, I'm going to post for a whole month every single day. And then I don't see any results from that. And I disappear for a couple of months. That's not going to help you grow in any way, shape, or form. You need to be consistent. When Instagram is looking for right now, we found there's about 3 to 4 times you need to post either a reel or an actual post. And you need to be on stories daily. Even if you are just reposting someone's inspiration or doing something like that, you need to be posting daily. I feel like you need to show up your face on Instagram. You need to create a relatable brand, and you're very good at doing that on your page. People need to know who you are. People need to see what you're doing and what you're all about.
I would like to know, what are your best tips for posting on Instagram? Help us out.
So we talked a little bit about the consistency, 3 to 4 times a week, post on stories. Reels are still definitely the number one content that's getting pushed by Instagram. More people are getting reels, are seeing reels. So for content itself, there are 3 major pillars that your content needs to be resonating with. So your content should be either educational, emotional, or entertaining. So between these 3, if you hit the mark, you're golden. And if you have a combination of all of those, that's very helpful to the viewers, to the audience, because they can find something that they can relate to. So valuable content, educational content is very big for us. So we give a lot of tips and tricks and how-tos for designers and homeowners and stuff like that.
Can I just say that is, I've never heard that said before. I don't think. Emotional. I've heard educational. I've heard entertaining. Talk to me about that pillar, the emotional content. Like, is that something you want to make people cry, or like, tell me about that?
So no, not necessarily. Not necessarily cry, but it's emotional / inspirational. So it should be something that they look at and they get a feeling from it. Like if you're doing, for example, just a small reel with you looking at the fabrics, looking at the tile swatches, creating the flat lay, and the viewers get that sense of what your aesthetic is, what you are inspired by. That creates an emotion. So that's kind of what it is.
And I would imagine the music as well, right? Because when we hear a certain type of song, the emotion could be like inspired, you could feel reflective.
Yes.
And I noticed that really, really big is people putting music, even just for a carousel. Is that doing well? Is that something we should be doing, putting music with our carousel photos, or is the music better just for the reels?
So when it comes to new features on Instagram, and like adding music to carousels or to posts, if the Instagram releases a new feature, use it. That's
Got
just
it.
the
Got it.
yes.
Because they're going
You
to
can
prioritize people who use their new feature because they're wanting to push it out.
exactly,
Got
exactly.
it.
So it's never a bad thing, never a bad thing to try those things out. They might not give you as much engagement or as much return as you expect, but Instagram will appreciate you for this because they're working really hard on coming
Right.
up with those ideas, right? Another thing when it comes to music is when you're posting reels, make sure you try to use trending audios. So those are the ones that have little arrow on the side. Some of them, if they're at the top 50 or something, they will say top 12, top 1. I prefer to use audios that have less than about 10,000 reels already posted under them. And you can see that when you click on the audio, you can see how many reels have been posted. So I prefer the ones that have less, and they say that it creates a little bit more engagement. There's better likelihood that if your reels goes viral, then when someone clicks on the audio, this is one of the first reels that they will see. So it just pushes it again to more people that are not necessarily your audience, but it just creates that momentum for the video to
Mm.
potentially go viral. So
Okay, so interesting. So how are we supposed to stay on top of all the new features? It feels like a full-time job, Valerie. Oh my gosh.
it is, yeah, it is for sure. It's a lot. You don't have to do it all. And once you have the schedule, once you start posting regularly and consistently, those things become second nature. You don't think about them. So it's
Yeah. And you could also outsource that, I imagine.
you can absolutely outsource that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Oh my gosh. Thank you.
Yeah,
I can't
no
wait for
worries.
everyone to act on all these tips. Guys, if you are listening today and you try these tips and they work, you let Valerie and I know. I want you to DM us on
Yes,
Instagram.
please.
Please,
Yes.
please, please. I want to know what's working. Before we get too far into this, I think it's important for people listening to understand that a lot of time goes into this. Like you said, you
Hmm.
prioritized Instagram. It wasn't just like
Yeah.
we're posting as we can. And so I think it's
Hmm.
important to notice that at some point, like something has to give, right? And
Hmm.
so when you are running massive projects and you are doing all the things, you don't have the time to do the Instagram. And so I don't want someone who's listening today to feel like, oh my God, now I need to do all those things too.
Hmm.
Because I can imagine when you were leaning all into Instagram, it took quite a few hours, I would imagine.
100%. Yeah, for sure. It's a lot of preparation. A lot of time goes into creating content itself. Um, a lot of time goes into editing. So those little things, you just have to be aware of what's important to you, right? Like you might not be doing it yourself. You can hire a production company who's going to do that for you. You can hire a social media intern who's going to help you out while getting experience. So there are ways to go about that. Like we hire videographers who go with us and shoot some content, right? Usually, what we do is we do content days. So we try to pack as much as possible on one day so we have that backup. And when we don't have something to post, we have those little bits and pieces that we can, get out there. Um, but also content creation, it doesn't have to be very highly produced and every video is super serious and there are mics and lights and all of those things, right? It doesn't have to be that way. What's Instagram, for example, and we can talk about the difference a little bit, but Instagram and TikTok, for example, completely different platforms in terms of which content really works on them. On Instagram, it's right now short videos with longer captions is what's helping the algorithm push your content forward. So if you have a video that you can engage the viewer to read the caption and the video plays on the background multiple times on the loop, that's going to help your video to get more views and essentially get pushed out to a larger audience. So if you don't have to do long format production videos, you can do just that. And that's how we started. And that's what we did in the beginning.
And my guess is that you do all of your content and posting yourself.
Most of it, yes.
Yeah. So how much time would you say if I wanted to go from 0 to 20,000, okay, or 2,000 to 20,000 followers in a month, how much time commitment would be required of me? Me, I'm saying me, I mean anyone. Like per week, how many hours per week do you think it takes?
I think like an hour a day would be a fair assessment.
That's not a little. Like an hour a day sounds
No,
like, oh, an hour a
absolutely
day.
not. No. And again, you can pack it into one day, you can make it, but you can delegate those things as well, right? You don't have to necessarily be the one who's doing that. So, and there are a lot of things that are there to help you out grow on social media. Like we can talk about the AI, for example, ChatGPT, platforms like that. You can absolutely maximize on that if you know how to use them and how to utilize them to help you out and to save you those hours. They're there for you. You just need to use them.
Okay, that's really interesting. I think we should talk about that. Like how,
Okay.
like what role does ChatGPT play to help people? Some people listening are probably like, what? Like I use ChatGPT for like emails and copywriting, but what role could ChatGPT play with building an Instagram account? Like how can it help you?
So what ChatGPT is right now, it's not what it used to be like even 2 months ago. The newer version is so much more advanced. You can download the documents and it can create a document back to you, like actual formatted document with all of the information, which is completely mind-blowing to me. So for us, the way that we use Instagram, from where we started on when we started posting, we created a spreadsheet with all of the posts that we have. So all of the titles, all of the content types, is it a reel, is it a post, is it a carousel, is it a story? Everything went into that spreadsheet. We wrote down, like manually, wrote down all of the views, comments, saves, forwards, all of that information was entered in. So when we downloaded this document into ChatGPT, the prompt was something like, can you analyze this document and see which topics are performing better, which content is performing better, who is the target audience for for this content, and give me some ideas for what we can post in the next 6 months that will help us grow an audience based on what we have. So
wow, I love that.
Yeah.
That sounds like a lot of freaking work. Like, whoa.
It actually
Making that
wasn't that
spreadsheet?
bad. Yeah, it wasn't that bad, to be honest, but it took like a couple hours at most. But the data that we got from it, and I'm very nerdy about that. Like I love data and I love analyzing stuff like that. That's fascinating to me. And the data that we got from it was invaluable. There was no way that we could see the takeaways that we got from there just from creating content, just from trying to figure out what the next thing is gonna be. There's no way. So
oh my God. So
yeah.
can I hire you to do that for me? I'm not joking.
We can talk about it later.
We're gonna talk about that offline. I mean, it's so funny to hear you say that because my husband, who's like super pro AI tech, has always been
Yeah.
just way ahead of the game. He's telling me you should be doing this and you should upload a spreadsheet and it'll tell you all that. I'm like, that sounds lovely. Yep, someone should do that, but it's definitely not gonna be me.
But yeah, it's actually amazing what it can do right now. You can absolutely write the caption with the help of ChatGPT. I think that's the most basic thing that people think about it when they connect ChatGPT with social media creation, and that's valid. But one thing that I'm gonna say when it comes to that, if you want to do that and if you want to use that for caption creation, when you write the prompt, don't just write, give me 5 tips for bathroom remodels, best 5 tips for bathroom remodels, because it's gonna give you the most basic 5 tips that everyone heard about, everyone's tired of, nobody is gonna learn from it, nobody's gonna be like, oh, this is so great, like this is so helpful.
Right.
Instead, like write every single point and why these points are important, and then it's gonna create the caption based on your opinion, right? Based on what you think and what valuable information you have to share with your audience. That's the only way that's the best way to use it.
I'm going to ask you a question. So my husband says that he does this thing for his clients. He's in marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious if you do this. I've thought like, oh, that'd be really smart for me to do, but I haven't done it. He, in ChatGPT, from my understanding, in ChatGPT creates like an avatar. Like he has his one sort of chat bot that he goes back to, and he feeds it information about the company or the ideal client or anything like that. And then always goes back there and asks, it's like you're training that particular chat thread, because I'm curious your feedback on this. And if I'm totally off to lunch, then let me know. But that then ChatGPT is giving you answers based on not just what's out there, but the information you've previously given it. So it's going to be more specific and more tailored. Do you do something like that? Is that a thing?
So here is coming back to the newer version of ChatGPT, the 4.0, I think it is right now. It has a memory. What it means is every thread that you put out there, every request, it memorizes some of the key details that are getting repeated. For example, if you say that I want the caption in a warm, friendly, but professional tone, it's gonna memorize that, and every single thread after that is gonna be used in that exact same tone. So right now, yes, you could do it in the same thread before, but now you don't have to. You can just literally, the more you use it, the more it knows about your style, your tone, your client avatar, your everything, right? So now it's a little bit more advanced. I found if you do it in one thread for a very long time, it gets a little confused, and it sometimes can get a little bit sidetracked. So
Interesting.
yeah.
Interesting. Super cool. Holy moly. Okay. So ChatGPT, we went down the rabbit hole. Instagram, how much would you attribute the growth of your Instagram to the projects you're getting now? Have you noticed an immediate change, or is it a slow transition to attracting clients that have maybe the budgets or the style that you want?
So it's a little bit of both. We did notice a great increase in terms of leads. Is every lead going to be a great project or a great client? No, not necessarily. It may be just someone reaching out to see what's out there. But the same thing is if you just put out the website, right? But the amount of leads that are coming in is so much more than it used to be. And yeah, now we have projects in the US. Now we have projects all over the world. So that's very helpful for sure, 100%. Is there going to be something better than going in person and actually meeting someone face to face and getting the connection and, charming them and finding out that they're looking for a designer? No, there's not going to be anything better than that. But social media allows you to reach the insane amount of people with the smallest investment possible. So if you look at it that way, the return on investment is absolutely insane.
That's an interesting way of looking at that. I like that. And I like too that you're reminding us that in person, you can't replace the in-person connection. And,
No, absolutely not.
You are in a long-term relationship oftentimes with these clients. And if you're going to be boots on the ground managing, you also want, from your perspective as the designer, you want to vet that client, and you want to make sure that they are going to be trustworthy and easy to work with and have the pockets that are deep, as they say, right? Like all those things are really important. But I think using social media to get in front of people, especially if you're looking for a more global audience, I think that's really interesting. Have you noticed an uptick in designers wanting you to share your knowledge with them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually have to recently separate my newsletter list. And if you're not on my newsletter, make sure you sign up on the website.
Ooh,
But we
yes, I'm not.
separated them into homeowners, potential homeowners, and designers. And again, ChatGPT came in handy for that.
Really? How did you do
Yeah.
that? So did you upload all the contacts and it sort of split them for you? How would they
So you know
know?
how you can download the document with all of the emails from whichever platform you're using, whether it's MailChimp or your website, Wix or whatever. I was dreading this task for so long. I was like, I need to do it. I want to separate the designers from homeowners. Like they don't have to get the same newsletter. They're not interested in the same thing, right? So it doesn't make sense. I've been dreading it for a month, and it's a thousands of people, right, that I have to go through. I was like, okay, how am I gonna do that? I'm gonna go Control F and then select everyone who has the designer in their email, and then maybe interiors in their email, and all of that. And I was like, that's gonna take me ages. Then on the morning, I was like, this is happening today. Like, there's no going back. This is happening today. I'm gonna get it done. And it just clicked, like, why don't I just upload it into ChatGPT and say, based on this information, take a look at these emails, separate the ones that you think that might be designer. Here are some clues. They might have interior designer, studio in their email. Separate all of them with the corporate email addresses. Leave the other ones for homeowners. So the whole task took me like 5 minutes with like going back and forth trying to nail it down. But I was writing it for a month, but it took 5 minutes.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
this is totally blowing my mind because essentially the way, no, but seriously, Valerie, the way that you just described the task to a computer is how I'm thinking, oh, that's how I would describe the task to my administrator. I'd be like, hey, Alberto, here's what we need to do. We need to separate them. Look for this, da 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 da. The difference is that the time it would take to get that information back to me, no matter how good of a whiz you are in Excel, unless that employee obviously is using ChatGPT,
Yes.
is like a fraction of the time. And so it just is a reminder that sometimes the setup might feel a little bit daunting. Like I know for me, sometimes when I'm like, I could go, like when we're doing podcast stuff, I'm like, I could go into ChatGPT to help me come up with a really great, catchy title for the episode. But I'm like, but then I have to give it the information and I got that. And then I'm like, forget it. I'm just going to come up with on my own. But really, then I'm like, oh, is that right? I don't know. And then my team, and I'm getting feedback. Probably if I'd gone there directly, spent the time doing the upfront work, which is what I'm hearing you say, right? That upfront input, give it some thought. Okay, what could be the prompts? How can I use this to help me? A little bit of feedback. It's not gonna be perfect. You probably had to comb through those lists, I imagine.
100%. Yeah, for sure. I'll look it over 100%. But the same with the employee, right? With an assistant, you would do the same thing. So
that's amazing. So how then do you get the split of the list, which I can appreciate because I also have two lists. I can appreciate that. But then how do you then upload that into your like MailChimp?
Yeah, there is a function there that you can import contacts. So you can separate them under a different category. And when you create a newsletter, you can select like which category it will go to.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
You're blowing my mind today.
The fact that ChatGPT actually, like, it doesn't just give you a list and you need to go and create a document from it. That's not the case anymore. It creates a document for you. You just need to hit a download button. That's it.
Wow, I have yet to use that feature. Clearly, I need to step up my game. Oh my goodness, it could be so useful in so many areas. It's amazing to see how that has really helped. And it's helping creators like yourself get in front of more people and create content that's better serving your audience instead of like creating something, waiting to see if it sticks, or spending days upon days analyzing all your past posts and content. You're able to now see, okay, where is it hitting people? Which one's working, which one's not.
Exactly.
Oh man,
yeah,
it's amazing. So what is next for you? So because I feel like you've got so much going on. You're growing your Instagram. Do you have a goal for a number of followers you want to get your Instagram to that you feel free to share?
50,000 by the end of the year. That's my goal.
All right. Well, we're only halfway through the year at the time of this recording.
Yes.
So I think you could do it.
I think I can do it too. There's honestly right now, there is no rush. I'm not chasing for any like crazy number. We do have more projects right now that we're working on. So we are a little bit more focused on that. So Instagram is, again, we post 3 to 4 times a week. That's kind of a sweet spot that we're in. Next, we released some templates for designers. And because we have that community of designers who are interested in that type of thing, we're trying to help them with that. We have an Instagram course, and there is one more thing that we're working on behind the scenes. So talking about the automation, and that's not just AI related, but it's automation in the business in general. And that partially came from Power of Process, because before it was all over the place. But in order to make the process even better and even more efficient, you need automation in your business. So what I mean by that is, for example, imagine you have a lead come in every week. Let's say you have a couple of leads coming in. You don't have to imagine if you didn't have to vet them and send them all the documents that they need to go through and send personal emails, but they do receive personalized emails with their name, with their project details, with all the information, without you even lifting a finger. Or another example could be if you have an email coming out to customers, to your clients, every single week, like an update email. Here's what's going on at Rebecca Hay Designs, right? For your specific project. Imagine if you didn't have to actually sit down and write that email and remembering all the things that were happening so you can update them. Instead, that email just goes out automatically with all the information without you lifting a finger.
I love it. Are you like a software developer now? I love it.
I'm actually just like, it's half of the percent of what we can do right now, and it's mind-blowing. It's actually mind-blowing. Like, you don't have to have an assistant doing those things. You don't have to have a person doing those things. Those can be automated, and you don't have to do, like, you just need to do the prep work, because we were talking about it before. You need to do the prep work, but the results from that is absolutely insane. So we're working on that right now. We're trying to really nail down how it can work for a broader scale of designers, like from small firms to a larger that have multiple people working on multiple projects. So there's that. And hopefully, maybe by the time this recording goes live, it will be live on our website. If not, sign up to the newsletter.
I love this because, I mean, you're speaking to my heart over here, because you know how much I love process and I love systems and I love business, but specifically, I love when you can get something working and it just kind of, it goes and it takes a little bit of upfront work, like we said, and spending the time to do that, whether it is training a person, having a checklist, having an automated system where it can bring leads in. I think it's freaking amazing. I can't wait to follow along on this journey. And I feel like this is a nice compliment for our poppers. So poppers, you're going to want to know about this. There's actually it's interesting, as you were saying that, it made me think there is a new company, it's a startup, that a friend of mine works for, and it's doing something. It's a software, is my understanding, similar, and it is for big corporations, but it's called Hire Guide. You can look them up, where the idea is they are trying to eliminate bias in hiring, so that it is through using AI, you apply for a job using this system, it is going to spit out the candidates that are best for the job, and it eliminates any of those personal biases that someone from HR may have when looking to hire. And it's along those same lines of, like, let's vet those potential clients, right? Do they have the right budget? Are in the right neighborhood? Like, is their project big enough? Is it the right aesthetic, or whatever those things might be? The timeline, is it the right timeline? And be able to communicate in a personal level, so it doesn't feel automated. Because I know a lot of us can relate to, like, I don't know, reaching out to something like, oh, I got an automated reply. Okay. It feels so unpersonal. So I'm interested to see what you do with this. And how you can personalize it. I think it's amazing, because I know a lot of designers, they love the idea of hiring someone to do this for them, but they don't always have the resources, especially like a solo designer would love to have an admin who can manage that the way I've had, or would love to invest in a program like Dubsado that can do that, but they don't always have the resources to invest in that early on. And even the bigger firms probably would prefer to put their resources into the other areas that require more of a human touch, like the people that go to job sites, the people that are managing the trades and looking at the tile. Like, those are things that right now AI cannot replace.
100%. Yeah.
So I think that's really smart. And I love watching you follow your passions. And I think it's really neat to see, you learn something new and then it sparks an idea and you follow that idea and it sparks another idea and then you follow that idea. And so I'm really excited to see where this ends for you or where this goes,
Thank
not ends, but
you.
where it continues. Before we sign off for today, I would love for you to share a last nugget of wisdom with our listeners, Valerie.
Mhm. So we talked a lot about social media, right? And I feel like a lot of the disconnect that people have is that they are scared of posting because they think that their life is not interesting. So my negative wisdom would be your life is super interesting. Whatever you have going on, it's worth the content. It's worth putting out there because people are going to be looking at it, watching you, and they're going to remember you for it. So it might not be interesting for you, but for others, it's super interesting. Don't be afraid. And yeah, just post.
I love that tip. And on that note, let's take a picture for Instagram. I'm like, this is interesting. I forget that I'm like, I'm not posting enough on Instagram because I'm like, my life is not as interesting these days. I literally think that thing. So your nugget was for me. Thank
No,
you.
no, it absolutely is.
Okay, let's take a picture, guys. You are witnessing this in live time if you're on YouTube. Okay, ready? Smile. I think it worked. Yeah. And you're very on brand, your whole screen. I have to say, we just had a guest on the podcast. It's airing, probably air before this one, with a personal stylist. And
Mhm,
she's like a style coach. And she talks about how, how you dress and how you show up and like your background on Zoom, like all of that is a reflection of your brand.
mhm.
And I
Yeah,
have to say that you have nailed that. Guys, go follow Valerie on
thank
Instagram.
you.
Can you remind everyone where they can find and follow you?
Yeah, Viola House Design all across all the platforms.
Amazing. And we will link it in our show notes. Thank you so much, Valerie. I can't wait to follow you.
Thank
And
you.
when you hit the 50,000 follower mark, we will have you back on the podcast to celebrate.
Perfect. Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Guys, isn't Valerie the sweetest? I absolutely loved my conversation. After we hit pause, or not pause, after we stopped recording, she said, wait, I wanted to share a few more things. So I hit record again and we were able to get that information. She was very generous with her knowledge. You guys should check out her Instagram course. Go follow her on Instagram. Obviously, watch and see some of those incredibly viral reels. See how she's really built a cohesive brand. I think it's really amazing. violahouse.ca, and give her a follow and let her know you found her here. I'd love to hear from you guys. Have you grown your Instagram? Have you used any of these tips? Do you have different tips? Send me a DM on Instagram. And also, please, I would love it if you could review this podcast on iTunes. The more reviews we get, the more higher up our podcast will rank so that we can get more eyeballs on to this podcast. It would mean so much to me. So please head on over to iTunes, give us a review, let Valerie know you found her here so we can get her back when she celebrates 50,000 followers. All right, guys, I'll see you soon.